We have a session called From Casual to Hypercasual, a practical guide on how to turn your casual production team to a hypercasual commando unit, which is a particularly exciting title there. And we have Moria from Crazy Labs joining us. Hi.
Hi guys, hi Rick.
Hi, awesome. Right, yes, we're basically on time for you to start, so I'm going to drop out, go quiet, let you do your thing, and then I'll come back if anybody has any questions towards the end. But yes, floor is yours.
Yeah, just a minute, please. I hope that everybody can see my screen. Thank you. Very happy to be here today, and my talk will be about why this is the right time to go hyper. We'll start. $5 million. Think to yourself, I mean, in hyper-casual games, how long do you think it takes to reach $5 million? My name is Moria, and I'm head of publishing at Crazy Labs. I work in the company for almost 7 years, and I think that I worked in every studio that the company has. But to be honest, since I started the hyper-casual publishing business, I think that was actually the moment that I really fell in love with my job. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. So today we're gonna have, I'll tell you a little bit about Crazy Labs and dive deep into why this is the right time to go hyper. I will share with you our latest success story of I Can Paint, and then we will have some time for questions, so you can drop them in the chat. So Crazy Labs is a top 5 publisher with over 3.5 billion downloads, and we have 100 million unique active users. We have offices in Tel Aviv, Skopje, Shanghai, Luoyang, Kiev. So if you're also searching for your next job, that might be an opportunity for you. We are a developer as well as a publisher, and we are crazy and we're working in labs. So we have the casual lab and the hyper casual lab, and we also have another lab that might even find a vaccine for coronavirus, so stay tuned. I want to do a short recap about hyper casual. These are free-to-play games. They can be played by anyone, anywhere. They are short, easy to understand, satisfying. They have mass appeal, and usually can be played in one hand. See this video? Don't you feel that this is what's happening in the gaming industry in the last 6 months? I think that one of the reasons why I fell in love with my job even more was the fact that hyper-casual games are games for non-gamers. And I am a non-gamer. There, I said it. That's why playing a game that I immediately know how to play, and I can play in one hand and even throw the phone away after 20 seconds, that's the game for me. And it turns out that there are a lot of non-gamers. And this is why you can see the constant increase in downloads. I think it's related to the fact that we are just bored or stuck at home for too long. And maybe we're just tired of scrolling social networks, and then we see a cool ad of a cool game and we download it. Just catch our attention. Of course, I believe that most of you know the mobile growth in downloads since the pandemic has started. It grows in 40%. And when looking at Sensor Tower Q2 report, you can see that in each of the stores, there's a spike of year over year. There's no doubt that during the first and second wave of coronavirus, I feel luckier than ever to be working in the gaming industry. The games that we released just since the pandemic started brought itself over 120 million downloads. When looking at top publishers and the top charts, you can immediately see that around 70 or 80% of the top games are hyper-casual games. It's true that in revenue, Hypercasual makes only 5% of game revenue. But when it comes to download, you can already see that we're talking of over 12%. And thank you, IronSource, for this data. So now that we all understand that Hypercasual is the best party in town, I'd like to explain how you can take your first steps in this genre with just little resources and maybe try to form a new line of business to your studio. It doesn't matter if you're indie, if you're a work-for-hire studio, any other types of gaming studios. This talk is for everybody. If these were regular days, the big studios would have worked on amazing Hollywood production, making games for brand, or just regular work-for-hire jobs. But during these crazy days and the unclear situations, some very talented studios, they're standing in uncertainty and some of them even standing idle. So there might be an opportunity here for very talented people to take their first steps into Hypercasual with a minimum risk. I think that the best combination of talent would be like a very good Unity developer, a 3D artist, and a game designer. Of course, it can be a one-man show of someone who knows how to do it all. I heard about a lot of studios that between projects, they work on their dream game or just an indie game that their talents have. So I'm saying, if you have time between projects, and so just go and try making Hypercasual games, because those dreams games sometimes doesn't even meet the store. So why not trying Hyper? Hypercasual development starts with some feasibility test. So when you or your publisher have a great idea for a game, you need to ask yourself, do people want to play my game? So we will start with a Ctr test. We want to check if people are watching and clicking the ad. So we will just develop the content for the ad itself. So we are more of an ad director other than just a game developer at the beginning. After that, we see that we have people clicking on our ad, we will go and see if they are also downloading the game and go into CPI test. And once you know that is good and people are downloading the game, you can actually go and start developing the game itself. Then you want to know if people are coming back to the game the day after, and you will go on retention test. Only then you will add the ads and test the average revenue per user. Once you have all that, you will go and see if the game can be scaled and then go on a global launch. I think that this process really helps you to stay focused and not waste time on games that you're not sure about. Of course, that it doesn't matter that if you have a Ctr test that was amazing, you are on the highway for success, but at least you know that you are not wasting time on games that doesn't have a chance to succeed. Now let's compare two different games. Casual games and hyper-casual games. These also have a lot of similarities, and this is why I wanted to compare, and I'll talk about the average game. Casual game and the hyper game, they both released at the same time. A casual game is taking a very long time to produce, let's say 18 months to produce, when a hyper-casual games will take you around 8 weeks to produce. In the casual game, you need a big studio, let's say 15 people to work on the game, while in hyper-casual game, you only need 3 people to do that. And when in the same time, the hyper-casual game can bring you 3 times more downloads than the casual games. So I'm not saying that the casual games won't bring more revenue at the end. But what I'm trying to say that in these risky times, you should try to minimize risk. And this is why I'm saying you should go on smaller scales production. As always, we have the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. So I'll start with the best case scenario. You go and try to make, you have an idea, then you will produce the video, the prototype, and test it. It has great results, awesome. Then you will develop the game and you're on your way to success. So, and you knew that in just, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, you know that you are in a good direction. In the worst case scenario, you just know that you failed after, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, okay? That really helps you stay focused, and even some of the publisher, like we do, even cover some of your team expenses at this time. So that minimizes the risks even more, okay? What I'm trying to say that you should keep on iterating, because you can do very short cycles of iterations and know how to test your next idea fast. Now, let's look at it from a different angle. Remember the $5 million revenue at the beginning. Not saying that this is the revenue that a hyper-casual game is making. I'm just trying to show you that you are reaching this milestone very, very fast. Okay, so let's look at these 4 hits of Crazy Labs. Soap cutting. The studio that worked on this game nailed it on their third try. They failed with 2 prototypes, and on the third one, they nailed it. Only 3 people worked on it, and they reached the 5 million milestone in just 12 weeks. In ASMR slicing, they tried 4 games and they nailed it in the 5th one. 3 people worked on it and they reached $5 million in just 7 weeks. Tie-dye, it was their 3rd try. 5 people worked on it and they nailed it with $5 million after 7.5 weeks. And the same for Amaze, that 2 people worked on it and reached the $5 million revenue in just 8.5 weeks, and it was released like 1.5 years ago. So you do the math. So I'm saying that it takes a lot of tries and a lot of times, to fail on your way. But I'm saying that with talented teams, you can also do it very, very fast. After saying all that, you need to remember that everything is nice and cool, but you have to remember to have a very good core, okay? Without an addictive and satisfying core, none of the above makes any difference. In some of the games, a good core will be something that makes you want to come back and will surprise you every time that you are playing it. For example, in this video that you see of tie-dye, this was the video that we tested on our first game, on the first test, sorry. And this video itself, and this was the only thing that players played, reached almost 50% day 1 retention. That means that the core of this game was incredibly good. And if that all doesn't seem real to you or just too good to be true, I'd like to share with you our latest success story of I Can Paint. Let's see how in this crazy coronavirus time, a small studio from Slovenia that doesn't even make game as their main business decided to play with the idea of making hyper-casual games just last June. Our dear friend Primoz from Tricky Tribe introduced us to Dawn of Play just in July. He said that we have to meet them, that they have a great game coming. Rotem Eldor from my team contacted them, and within just 2 days, they started a CPI test for the game. It started with just a paint can on a pendulum, and I was extremely excited by this game because this was one of my time killers, watching on Facebook and Instagram and I just enjoyed it so much. But I was also suspicious because I knew that many game developers tried this trend before and failed. So there was probably something else about the way they gamified the trend that made it so great, because the outcome was always beautiful and satisfying. And I found myself keep playing this game over and over again. And then, like I said, when the outcome is beautiful, that was very, very nice. And so was the CPI. On the first CPI test that we did, we reached 15 cents CPI. And because it has a repetitive mechanic, we could also look at the day one retention. It almost reached 40% day one retention on our initial test. Then we knew that we have something good in our hand, and also knew that we have to be fast, because sometimes these trends come and go. So we wanted to hit the iron while it's hot. We helped the studio plan their next steps, adding metagame, and mostly we wanted to enrich the creativity for the players. At first, we allowed the players to make some choices, requests from buyers, and our UI expert worked on the UI of the game with the team and improved the art. The retention got extremely better, and the CPI remained great. Since the average revenue per user was good, we decided to launch the game, even though that we knew that we have to add a lot of more content to the game. So we started a heavy live ops work. We added a painting technique. We added a VIP customer. We added a lot of choices for the players. And I think that in these simulation games, one of the most important things is to give the player choices, to allow them to express their creativity and be able to discover new things all the time. That would keep them engaged for longer. So I'm not saying that Dawn of Play, I'm not sure, sorry, that Dawn of Play thought that this is how their summer will look like when they just started to work on their first hyper-casual game ever. I'm saying that every studio that will start, and I'm not saying that every studio that will start working will launch their first game so fast, but I'm trying to say that it's more than possible. And when it's happening, it's sweeter than ever. And I'm always saying that on my talk, and I will say it again. Every game can become a game changer. By the way, if you feel that you have a great team, but you're not sure how to start, or you have an amazing idea and you don't know how to gamify it, you can maybe try to join one of our hubs. We have one hub in India and one hub in Israel, and we are about to have more hubs, so keep following. In the hub, we are giving hyper-casual training and injecting all you need to know about hyper-casual. It's kind of a hyper-casual bootcamp. But if you didn't find a hub that fit you, then you can always get in touch with our publishing manager, and they will be coaching you and mentoring you, and they will do whatever they can in order to help you publish your game. You can also use our new Click dashboard. That's actually a great opportunity to invite you to sign up, and maybe you'll get invited to join it. It's a self-serve platform. It has full transparency and with zero hassle from your side. So to sum it up, if there's one thing that I want you to take from my talk is stop being afraid of failing. We are failing all the time, but we keep trying. Try to make your first steps in hyper-casual. Start small. Build a small team or just hook up, with some talents from the industry. And once you start developing hyper-casual game, you might find yourself having the best summer or winter you ever had. So thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Pocket Gamer, for an awesome event. And I can't wait to meet all of you in person. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, we do. If we've got some time for questions, if anybody in the audience does want to ask some, I've got a couple to kick things off that I'm kind of interested in. So obviously Crazy Labs makes its own games, but you've got the publishing arm as well. How involved does the publishing team get in the games? If a developer comes to you and says, I've got this great idea, like how involved are you getting in like the actual creation of the game?
Actually very much involved. I think that publishing manager wears three hats. They are business development, they do business development, they do project manager, but they are doing a lot of product. They are very much involved in ideation, in the game design. So every game developer that come to work with us get to enjoy their talent and their experience in casual.
Cool. And you mentioned sort of spending time with Icon Paint on like live ops and involving the game. How long do you usually spend maintaining a game after its launch? Because I know Hypercasual games kind of have a short life cycle, but obviously how long would you spend on a game?
Because usually we think about Hypercasual game with very short lifetime, but at the beginning, of course, we will try, it's the honeymoon period of the game. So we will try to do as many updates as we can and try to upgrade, the game and improve the KPIs as much as possible. Afterwards, we will just, let's say, do an update once every 2 weeks, then every month. But we will always do something with the game. Maybe it's just upgrading, Xcode, and the other thing will be just to try to do something with the ads or adding new levels. We will keep on doing it all the time. And of course, A/B testing our performance all the time and try to optimize it.
Mm-hmm. Great, we've got a few questions coming in now from the audience. So someone's asking, anonymous attendees asking for a bit more clarification on that 5 million revenue number. Just checking, is that a developer payout? And what is kind of the average revenue that you see generated from these games?
No, I'm talking about revenue, of course, so it's not a payout, but I'm saying every publisher has, their own profit margin, but you do the math, something between 15 to 35% profit margin, which is kind of the standard in the industry. And that depends, of course, what is the rev share that you have with your publisher, or what is the business model that you have with your publisher. So what I'm saying that $5 million is a milestone. Of course, that the game is making a lot more afterwards, because, it took them just 7 or 8 or 10 weeks to get to $5 million. But I'm trying to say that a good hyper-casual game can be very profitable for both sides.
Mm, awesome. We've got another anonymous attendee who wants to know, how much does it cost approximately from the idea to the 2 weeks even if it does fail? So as a developer, do the CTR and CPI tests.
Again, what was the beginning of the question?
Oh, sorry. How much does it cost to...
Cost?
Yes, to do the initial 2 weeks.
For the developer or?
Yeah, I guess for the developer, yeah.
Wow, that's extremely hard to answer this question, because it's really depends how many people worked on the game, how much effort did you put in it, did you buy assets from the Unity store, for example, or did you made it all on your own? We usually encourage our developers not to invest a lot of effort at the beginning, because their idea might fail. So they just need to do the minimum in order to have great video. And I hope that I answered the question.
I think that probably about covers it, without going into a detailed full-on breakdown of your business plan. We've got a question from Oscar Clark, who's asking, I think, a question that a lot of people are very curious about, particularly in Hypercasual. How do you think the changes to IDFA are going to impact the success of Hypercasual? I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer. But...
when I was planning to this talk, I said, okay, my talk is just one day after the announcement. it can be like talking about this or talking about that, but
yeah.
So I think that I will say what everybody are saying. We're playing, preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. It really depends how this, the CPM will react and what will happen with CPI eventually. But because we don't need to really target specific users, I really hope that it will have good impact on hyper-casual games.
Cool. We've got an anonymous attendee who wants to know what your thoughts are on hybrid casual games and the evolution of hyper-casual.
That's a great question. I thought that by now we would see more hybrid casual games. So I think that maybe it's just not as easy as it looks to make these games. So we will continue to see everything, in my opinion. We will see the ultra casual, and we'll see just the regular hyper casual games, which I think are the best. And we will also see the hybrid casual, much deeper games that are more likely to be with in a purchase. Mm-hmm. So there's a room for everything.
Yeah. We've got a flood of questions now. I think this one is interesting. What platforms do you do CPI tests on?
Both. We've got both, yeah, iOS and Google Play. Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because we usually tested our games only on iOS, and we are now starting to work on the two platforms, and maybe even moving it only to Google Play at the end.
Cool. And sort of on that similar note, what do you see as the revenue split typically between Android versus iOS? I guess like which platform is making the most money, I suppose.
I think that at the moment, before iOS 14 and IDFA, of course, I think that iOS still brings more revenue, but let's see how that will change.
Yeah, I guess we're just looking into a crystal ball for that one still, until anything actually changes.
Exactly.
It's kind of a more detailed question about about Crazy Labs Publishing and its business from Mohammed. How much do you pay to developers to help them through development? I mean, you don't have to go into specifics here. I'm sure it depends on the company.
We have different business models, and so we are trying to be as flexible as possible. I think that I divided into a few answers. There are developers that want, I call it the lottery ticket. They have the lottery ticket dream. So they will go on a big rev share and not being supported by development fees and prepayment and stuff like that. Mm. And we can also offer many different types of prepayments or to cover production expenses, but that will slightly change the business model afterwards. So we can do everything. So that really depends if you need an immediate cash flow or that you want the big bucks in the end.
Mm. Cool. We've got still a little bit more time if anybody has a quick question to ask. I've just got one from myself that I'm kind of wondering about. So obviously, like there's all sorts of different elements that make for a game to be a success. It's a bit of everything. But what would you say is like the most important aspect of a hyper-casual game that leads to its being a success?
Oh, like I said, the core of the game. That will eventually what makes a game become a success. Something that people want to keep on playing and keep coming back to. That the core have to be perfect and polished, and of course you have to start with great CPI because you want to have people playing your amazing game, but it hold only with amazing core that people will keep on playing.
Awesome. Right. I think that takes us up to time. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your talk. It was really cool.
It was great being here. Thank you so much.
Great to have you. Thank you very much.